special dinner for all the folks that work here in the Big Harbor. So I thought I'd wear my most special bow tie. Tying bow ties can be pretty tricky, but I'm good with knots, you know, being a sailor and all. This is a little harder than I thought it was going to be. Maybe if I had something to tie the knot around. My pencil. Where's my pencil? There's my pencil. I think if I put this here like this, and I'd be able to tie it around it, well, at least one needle. There. It's done. I don't think I can tie a bow tie. Wait a minute. Here I am thinking I can't do something, and I only gave it one try. You know, that's just what happened to Theodore. Yeah, he tried doing something that was hard for him to do, too, and it looked like he couldn't do it. So, maybe I better tell you the whole story. See, it all happened the day that Theodore was chosen to be the tug in charge. Theodore was hurrying to the morning work meeting. Today is the day, he was saying. Today, I will be chosen to be the tug in charge. Being the tug in charge meant that you got to pull ships from up in front, just like Emily. You led the way and gave orders. It was one of the most important jobs to have in the whole harbor. Theodore was just passing Bedford Buoy, so he decided to practice asking the dispatcher if he could be the tug in charge. Pardon me, Mr. Dispatcher, sir, but I was just wondering. No. I was thinking. No. I would like to be. Yes, that's better. Pardon me, Mr. Dispatcher, but today I would like to be the tug in charge. I would like to be the tug in charge today, Mr. Dispatcher. The dispatcher was just starting the work meeting when Theodore arrived. Tugboats, said the dispatcher. We only have one ship arriving later today, and I will need a tug in charge. Now, who do we have? The dispatcher looked around at the tugs. Theodore was about to say something when George gave a loud blast of his whistle. George, said the dispatcher. Ah, yes, George. You will... Excuse me, interrupted Theodore. Yes, Theodore, said the dispatcher. What is it? Theodore swallowed the big lump in his throat. The dispatcher was waiting. Pardon me, Mr. Thinking, but I was just dispatching... began Theodore. I mean, excuse me, Mr. Tug in Charge, but today I would like to be the dispatcher. Today you would like to be me? Said the dispatcher, who was most surprised. No, said Theodore, who was getting kind of muddled. I would like to be... I was wondering if I mean, do you think I could be the tug in charge? There, he had said it. Okay, Theodore, said the dispatcher. Oh, that's okay, sighed Theodore, putting on a brave face. Maybe some other time. Theodore, called Hank, the dispatcher said you could be the tug in charge. He could, said Theodore. I mean, I did. I mean, I am. Theodore let out a joyful blast of his whistle. Thank you, Mr. Dispatcher, he said. I won't let you down. No, sir. I'll get right on it, right away. Theodore hurried out to meet the ship, filled with excitement. He was going to be the tug in charge, and there wasn't even another tugboat with him. He would be all alone. This is great, he thought to himself. I wonder what kind of ship it is. Maybe it's a container ship, or maybe it's a giant oil tanker. When Theodore arrived at the entrance to the harbor, he looked this way and that way, but he couldn't see the ship he was supposed to bring in. And then he saw something. It looked like a giant, funny-shaped oil drum floating in the water. Could this be what the dispatcher wanted me to bring in? Wondered Theodore. He looked around again, but there were no ships in sight. Theodore turned back to the strange-looking thing bobbing in the water. I'm the tug in charge of an old oil drum, he said. This wasn't quite what he had in mind. Theodore decided not to even use his towrope. I'll just push it in, he said to himself glumly. Theodore gave a gentle push. The thing wouldn't budge. Now, that's funny, Theodore thought to himself. It's just a little thing floating in the water. I should be able to push it. Theodore turned his engine up and gave his mightiest shove. Well, the thing turned a little, like a slippery bar of soap, and Theodore went sliding right past it. There's something funny here, thought Theodore. That little thing is heavier than it looks. I'll have to use my tow rope. Theodore kept wondering about the strange floating thing. There was just no place to tie his tow rope. And that's when Theodore began to worry. Maybe I can't bring it in, he thought to himself. Theodore felt like giving up, but suddenly he had an idea. Theodore worked and worked away until his rope was wrapped tightly around the thing. Theodore gave a triumphant blast of his whistle to say, "Theodore, the tug in charge, on the way with a giant, medium-sized, thing." Theodore made his way into the Big Harbour with the strange thing. It was slow going, because as small as the thing was, it was still tough tugging. Theodore gave another blast with his whistle, just to let the others know the tug in charge was coming. And suddenly, the weirdest, wildest, most awful thing began to happen. The water around Theodore began swirling and whirling, like someone had pulled a plug in a giant bathtub. Only the water wasn't going down. It was something coming up right under Theodore. And it was pushing Theodore up right along with it. Well, the other tugs turned to watch in amazement, and so did the dispatcher. "Whoa!" shouted Theodore. "The harbor is moving. I mean, I'm moving. Or something is moving. Whoa!" Then Theodore realized the strange thing was rising up out of the water, and it seemed there was a lot more of it than met the eye. In fact, it wasn't an oil drum at all, far from it. It was actually a submarine, Northumberland submarine. Now everyone in the harbor was staring at Theodore. "What are you doing up there, Theodore?" said Northumberland. "What are you doing down there?" said Theodore. Now, if you don't know, Northumberland is a very sleepy submarine. He had been heading into his dock after a long ocean voyage under the water, when he had fallen fast asleep. Theodore's whistle blast finally woke him up, and he decided to rise to the surface to see what was going on. "Theodore," said the dispatcher, "what is the meaning of this? What are you doing on top of that submarine?" I was just bringing him in, sir," replied Theodore. "It looks," smiled George, "like he's bringing you in." The others smiled too. It was a very unusual place for a tugboat to be. But the dispatcher frowned. "Theodore, that is not the ship I wanted brought in." Theodore felt terrible. He had so wanted to do a good job, and it had gone all wrong. "I guess I'll never be the tug in charge again," he said to himself. Once Theodore managed to get off Northumberland, he floated back towards his dock. He was worried that the dispatcher would have harsh words for him, so he floated very slowly. "Tugboats," said the dispatcher. "The ship Theodore was supposed to bring in has arrived just now. I need one tug for that job." George smiled inside and out, certain that this time he would be chosen as the tug in charge. Much to Theodore's surprise, the dispatcher turned to him. "Theodore," he said, "you'll have to hurry." Theodore? Had Theodore heard right? Was the dispatcher really asking him again? But Theodore said, "Maybe you should let George be the tug in charge. I don't think I can do it." Now, Theodore always thought the dispatcher was in a hurry and gave a lot of orders. But this time, the dispatcher looked at him for a long moment. And then he said in a very gentle voice, "I would really like you to try again, Theodore. I think you can do it."
"Thank you," said Theodore. Maybe I can do it."
And with that, he set off once again to meet the ship. The right ship this time, he hoped. This time, Pearl, the pilot boat, was waiting beside the ship Theodore was to bring in. She was a small cargo ship, the kind a tug like George or Emily brought in by themselves all the time, but not Theodore. Theodore floated bravely towards the ship, but the closer he got to it, the smaller he felt. "Theodore," called Pearl, "please hurry and button on with your tow rope. We haven't got all day." Suddenly, Theodore had a terrible sinking feeling. It was the same feeling he had when he was rising up on the submarine's back. It wasn't a nice feeling either. It was the kind of feeling that said, "I can't do it." "Theodore," Pearl called again. But Theodore was already turning to go. "I can't do it," he said. "I can't be the tug in charge." Theodore was worried he would fail again, just like the last time. And then a voice called out to him.
"I think you can do it."
It was Bedford Bowie. Now, marker buoys hardly ever speak unless they have something very important to say.
"You did move that submarine," said Bedford, "even though you thought you couldn't at first. I think you can move this ship."
Should he? Could he?
Maybe. Just maybe.
Theodore slowly turned toward the cargo ship. Well, it was very hard work, and Theodore almost couldn't pull the ship at first. But he kept on trying. He tried, and he tried as hard as he could.
"It's moving,"
called Pearl. Theodore whistled happily to Pearl and continued all the way into the Big Harbour, pulling the cargo ship.
"Good job, Theodore,"
called Pearl.
"We're almost there."
"I did it," said Theodore.
"I am the tug in charge."
Yes, it was hard work. But do you want to know a little secret? It wasn't nearly as hard as pulling that submarine. Now, Theodore is a fine tug in charge. And yes, it was hard at first. But he tried, and he tried again. And I need to try again to tie this bow tie. Just hold it here and hold there. What do you think? Well, thanks for visiting us here in the Big Harbour. We'll see you all again next time. So long. Oh, dear. Oh, I think I better try this again.
Theodore, he's a tugboat and a friendly tugboat too. A friendly tugboat too. Oh, Theodore likes to do the things that friendly tugboats do. Pushing and a pulling in the great big harbor, in the great big world is so much fun. So many brand new things to discover. Waking with the sun, gotta get the job done. Oh, Theodore and Emily, Oda, Hank and George and the Harbourmaster too.